Hi, this is Mr. West, Rossett's Most Stylish. I'm looking at AS January 2011, question 6. The question or the statement: by 1939, the various forms of Nazi propaganda had made little impact on the German public. Obviously, I'm going to start my introduction. First of all, I'm going to define little impact. Really important, that's a key phrase. It means that the public had not altered their behaviour to comply with Nazi ideology, obviously because of propaganda. Maybe I should have made that clear there, okay? But what does little impact mean to you? And then, it's difficult to quantify, as it's hard to know what made people conform. Was it terror? Was it propaganda? Very difficult because there's no vehicle for checking those kind of things. So, to agree with the question, first of all, newspapers, I've put that on there, down by 10% circulation. People just knew that it was obviously Nazi and they just weren't interested. I've put cinema on this side. A lot of examples would actually disagree, but there were certain overtly political films, The Eternal Jew, that was in 1940, but yeah, His2m, these examples of really political films that perhaps, didn't quite have the message across that, and persuaded people that the Nazis were right. Yeah, many Germans only accepted elements that the Nazi propaganda that they agreed with. Okay, so for a lot of people who were naturally quite like Protestant, traditional, nationalist, a lot of what the Nazis were saying was easy to accept. So maybe that's an element as well, that actually wasn't the propaganda, it's just what they were saying they mainly agreed with. Where they didn't agree caused some problems. The churches still remained outside the Nazi influence. I think early doors, obviously people, the Catholics made the Concordat and different things, but the Protestants were just naturally involved in supporting the regime. But they did still remain outside the Nazi influence, and no matter what propaganda the Nazis put about the churches, people still went, and they still had a non-Nazi influence on their lives. Maybe support was down to the economy. Think about your workers. Okay, they'd got a job. Obviously, that had made a massive impact on them. And there was the issue of terror as well. So was it necessarily propaganda that led to the widespread support, or at least acquiescence, from the German public? Let's have a look at disagree. Clearly the Hitler myth was massive. Okay, it was a massive success. It was Goebbels' greatest achievement. The adulation and love for their Führer was huge. And obviously it would be hard to agree with the statement that little impact was made with that. Radio as well was new and interesting. The Nazis took it over. They looked that they were modern. And I think that links down to Joseph Goebbels down here, because when he got involved, it tended to be a bigger success. He said it shouldn't be overtly political, the intention is clear and it puts you off. And really with radio, he tried to make it a bit more sort of entertaining and stuff like that. Yes, he got the Nazis' message across. Yes, Hitler's speeches were broadcast, but a lot of the time he realised that the most popular shows were ones that weren't overtly political. Again, cinema, obviously there's no films that are made that are not or anti-Nazi, but the actual number of overtly political films made in the cinema, look that up, it's pretty low. And as well, you've got the parades, Nuremberg Rally, and things like that, where people see that sea of people all as one with Hitler. It'd be very hard to say that actually that made little impact on the German people. So let's move on to our conclusion then. I think the Hitler myth and Joseph Goebbels' involvement produced the biggest impact, and I think in those two instances you couldn't agree with the question. But overtly political propaganda meant that the Germans switched off, so there wasn't successful. I've put down it's hard to agree with the question, especially when considering young people who lapped up the propaganda and things that were there. Older people were hard to win over and were more sceptical, so I guess little impact, okay. The public had not altered their behaviour to comply with Nazi ideology because of the propaganda. I find that hard to agree with. But I think that maybe in older people, and with overtly political stuff, maybe that's the case. But in a lot of other areas, like the Hitler myth, when Joseph Goebbels was involved, and with younger people, it was much more successful and a much larger impact. Thank you.